Alright team. So in the last video we have understood about what exactly is this MLOps and how MLOps is suitable for the real-time production use case of applying the machine learning. Now the common question that every learner has is like, why do we require an MLOps when we already have a proven methodology of the software development, that is the DevOps? So in this video I'm going to answer how MLOps is different from DevOps and why DevOps is definitely not suitable for machine learning projects. So let's first understand what exactly is this DevOps for starters. So if you're someone from machine learning background and if you're learning it, I'm sure you'll have a question, what exactly is DevOps? Well, when I talk about DevOps, it's a combination of cultural philosophies, practices and tools, and the core idea of using these tools is to increase the organization's ability to deliver the application, that is the working application of a client and the services at a high velocity, as well as evolving and improving the products at a faster pace than organizations using the traditional software development approach like the waterfall model or an agile model. So as a result of this will enable the organization to better serve their customers and also compete in a much more effective way in the market. Now that's the core principle of this DevOps. It is to ensure that you will be able to deliver the changing requirements of the customer and you will build the products in an iterative basis, ensure that your application is at top level. Now here when we talk about the DevOps, so under this model of this DevOps, okay, the development and the operations team are no longer siloed, which means they are not working separately. Instead, they will be working together. And in some cases, we have observed that the quality assurance and the security team, they also become tightly integrated with the development and the operation throughout the application life cycle. And these tools also help the engineer to independently accomplish the task that normally would have required the help or the information from the other teams. So as a result of this, by integrating the development and the operations team, here in case of DevOps, we'll be able to increase the throughput of the application that we are building. And when we talk about the DevOps pipeline, okay, this is how a DevOps pipeline would look like. You've got a company, you've got your application that is running for your company. Now, whenever you have this application, whenever you release a new version of your application, first you will perform the build activity. That means you will compile the code and generate the artifact. Then you will perform the testing of the code, whether the testing is working as per the expectation or not. Here you will do the unit testing, performance testing, integration testing, all the testing that you would require. And once you are satisfied with the testing, you will release it to the production environment. And once it is released, you will monitor its usage. So you will take the feedback from the customers and you will monitor the application working. Depending on the monitoring, you will take the decision, okay, whether you want to replan again and you want to do the cycle again and again. So as you can clearly see with this DevOps approach, we have got various phases: build, test, release, monitor, plan. So these are called as the various phases that we would observe in the delivery pipeline. So this is the high level idea of this DevOps. So with this DevOps approach, so I'll be able to integrate the development and the operations team to bring the application to the production in a much more faster way. So as a result of using this approach, obviously we'll get a speed. That means we'll be able to innovate faster. We'll be able to put that innovation given to the customers in a much more better way. So that's one advantage that we would get: rapid delivery. So we'll be able to increase the pace of the releases so we can ensure that the applications that we are deploying is always secure, it follows the best practices, and we have the automation in place. And reliability. So with the process-based methodology, you'll be able to ensure the quality of application update and even the infrastructure changes as well. So as a result of this, to the end user, you are providing an amazing experience to them. Here, we will be using the practices like the CI and CD, that is continuous integration and the continuous delivery practices, to test that each stage is functional and safe. And we'll also ensure that we monitor the application. This will help us to ensure that the performance is working as per the expectation. And with this DevOps, we'll be able to operate and manage the infrastructure and ensure that we are able to meet the customer's dynamic demand. So it can be built for a scale. So we have got various tools in achieving this DevOps. And here we use all these things to ensure that we will be able to build the application in a faster pace, and also ensure that it is reliable, it is scalable, and it would increase the collaboration between the cross-functional teams with the increased security. So these are some of the key benefits that we would get in the DevOps approach. Now there are various tools that are available to ensure that we realize the benefits of DevOps and we follow the best practices. Now, one of the key challenge here is when we talk about the machine learning, we cannot directly apply the DevOps or the DevOps tools over there. Let me tell you some of the reasons and the challenges where we would face whenever we are applying on the machine learning project. See, when we talk about applying all these things on a machine learning project, there's a lot of things that keeps on changing. Here, in case of machine learning model deployment, the deployment process that we would take is very different than the deployment that you would generally observe for the normal software application building. When we talk about the machine learning model, here in case of machine learning model building, we will be taking an iterative approach. When I say iterative approach, as you have seen in our previous videos of machine learning and statistics, when we get the data, we will start experimenting with the data. We will start exploring the data. We will create the different set of pipeline depending on the data that we are working with. And once we create the data pipeline, then we will work with the various machine learning algorithms depending on the data that we are working. We will perform the hyperparameter tuning, we will perform the model selection, and finally we will decide that, okay, for a given set of data set, okay, this is the model that is working for me. So as a result of this iterative approach that we have got in machine learning project is one of the main challenge in applying the DevOps strategy. So it actually makes it difficult for us to predict the development timeline, and even it is very difficult to say what will be the outcome whenever we are doing the experiment. And when it comes to the machine learning, as you might have experienced as well, if you're following with me in my machine learning playlist, machine learning requires some specialized skill set. Like you would be needing to understand the data set, the importance of statistics, and some basic maths to understand what is happening with the data set. And not just that, you also need to understand which algorithm is suited for the given data set, because you will be analyzing a huge volume of the data set from the mathematical mindset so that you can clearly find the patterns in a given data set. Now, these skills of machine learning models or the data set, it's very new for the DevOps team. So not everyone will be of the same skill set to understand its impact and the use case. Not everyone from your DevOps team will be aware about the bias or choosing the incorrect model. So it requires, I would say, special skill or a knowledge. And another key challenge that we would observe is when we talk about the machine learning model deployment, depending on the activity that we'll be performing, the infrastructure is going to vary. For example, if I'm performing the pre-processing, which is a data pre-processing pipeline, maybe I'll be using the system or an infrastructure which is based on CPU, which will help me to reduce the cost as well as transform the data. And when it comes to training, maybe in that case, I'll be preferring to use the infrastructure which is based on GPU. And when it comes to inference, maybe at that time, depending on the type of model that I'm working with. So at that time, I'll be choosing the node depending on that task, and as well as I have to manage the scaling as well. Now, obviously, when it comes to these kind of infrastructure requirements, special infrastructure requirement or the resource requirement, the current DevOps practices or the current DevOps team might not be aware of it. And that's one of the key challenge over here. And not just that, after the model is deployed into the production environment, so the way you would monitor the applications from the DevOps perspective is very different than the way that you would monitor the machine learning application. When you talk about monitoring the machine learning application, here you will be checking for the data drift. You will be checking about what is the performance of the model. In some cases, you have to perform the shadow inference. So there are some complex techniques that we use whenever we talk about the deployment and the management, which is not covered by your existing DevOps team. And not just that, in some cases, there is a refresh has to happen on our feature store. And we have to think about the infrastructure, how we would manage the individual infrastructure. And lastly, the core concept or the core challenge in machine learning that we would observe is the data management and the governance. So when we talk about the machine learning models, it rely upon the data that we are working with. Now in such cases, okay, data management and creating a feature store is very critical. And also we have to ensure that the data that we are working represents the population that we are analyzing in a correct way. So ensuring that the data is clean, accurate, and labeled, transformed, and the pipeline is working as expected requires a specialized knowledge and the processes which are typically not present in the DevOps team. So I hope this gave you a clear understanding as why just because you have a DevOps team, you should use it. Because when we talk about the machine learning model deployment, it's complex to what you know from the traditional DevOps. I hope this gave you a perspective. So with this, we come to the end of this video. So I'll be talking about how you would go ahead and solve these things, and we'll also talk about the MLOps in our coming videos in our learning journey. So if you have liked, so please consider subscribe to our channel, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video where we discuss more about the MLOps and the machine learning model into the production. So I'll see you next time.